What do the San Francisco 49ers have to do to get back on track outside the bye? We have lots of stuff to talk about. Chase Young, Brock Purdy. We're back. We're back, baby. Let's get into it all right now. Shout out the Sourdough Squad. You guys already know what to do. Drop an SDS in the chat. Smash that like button. Let's get after it. Let's go. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. What is going down, Sourdough Squad? I gotta see if I can remember how to do this thing. I think we talk into this microphone. I think we got the squad back in the chat. Let's go. We're back. We are back and we rise because you know the vibes. Like yeast, we go crazy. What's good to all the Sourdough Squad? Good to see you guys, man. It's been a while. Haven't talked to you guys since what, Thursday? No service? Man, I went off the grid. I can't remember the last time I went 4 days without cell phone service or internet. Not gonna lie. Wasn't bad at all. 10 out of 10. Highly recommend. But what I also do recommend is tapping in and let's talk about some San Francisco 49ers because so this is what I did. As you guys know, I went to Big Sur this weekend. If you're unfamiliar with Big Sur, man, you all gotta go. You gotta check it out. One of my all-time favorite spots in the entire world. Probably one of the best coastlines in the entire world. It's beautiful. And then right like 2 minutes, 5 minutes inland, you're in the redwood trees. It's phenomenal. It's one of my favorite spots. But what I did while hanging out with the family, vibing, going to the beach, going to the river, doing all that good stuff, and just chilling out and hanging out, I downloaded some Washington film. So I got a good look at Chase Young. And I also finally caught up on watching the San Francisco 49ers offense versus the Bengals because obviously as we know we had Halloween on Tuesday, we had the trade deadline on Tuesday. The 49ers go for Chase Young, and so things kind of went haywire, and of course it's a bye week, so I dipped out. So our normal week of scheduling was kind of thrown off last week. So I want to share my thoughts with you guys on what I think the San Francisco 49ers have to do to get back on track as with the 49ers move forward. And they're going to be facing the Jaguars this week in Florida, 10 a.m. start time. And, you know, this is the stretch run that the 49ers have to close out the year. It's Jaguars week 10, Bucks week 11, Seattle Seahawks week 12, Eagles week 13. We go on this bird run. Seahawks week 14, Cardinals week 15, and the Ravens, who from kind of catching up on everything, are the ascending team right now in the NFL on Christmas week 16, Commanders week 17, and then the Rams week 18. So that's the way the schedule shakes out to end the year. And we have a true second half run in front of us. As we already know, San Francisco 49ers lost 3 games and in a row and in uncharacteristic fashion. And what do the San Francisco 49ers have to do to get back on track? Is it Brock Purdy? Is it the defense? Is it the offensive line? Is it the coaching staff? Is it an injection of talent like Chase Young? The, the easy answer is all of the above. I'm gonna take the cop out. I'm gonna pose the questions, and then I'm gonna say, you know what, guys, it's all of it. It's everything. But this is where I feel currently with the San Francisco 49ers. I think right now, and you guys can tell me otherwise in the chat. And first of all, shout out the chat, man. Shout out to OGSDS. I see you guys in here. Good to see you guys, man. Not gonna lie, when you kind of remove yourself from kind of content for a while, it's like it's a whole nother like level of kind of getting back into it and kind of making sure you fall back in line. But I do want to say shout out to you guys, and shout out to all the squad, man. Good to see you guys. Get the vibe with you. And let's talk about the San Francisco 49ers because I don't know. Like I said, I was offline, but I think some people are stressing out about the current state of the San Francisco 49ers. And kind of where the 49ers are at. And are they a fraudulent team? I hear that a lot. Are the 49ers frauds? It's a very popular word that we throw out when a good team goes down. And to be honest, I think there's plenty of room for improvement, but I do have a ton of faith in this roster, how it's constructed, the coaching staff, everything in between, that they can get this back on track. And I think it doesn't start with the offense. It starts with the defense. I think the 49ers defense is the key right now to the success of the 49ers moving forward. Because when we look at the team in totality, we can see that the 49ers offense is the most competent that it's looked under Kyle Shanahan. It really has. It has. And even if the San Francisco 49ers went from scoring 30 points a game to 17 in the last 3, the 49ers still look extremely competent on offense. And that's even with the turnovers. That's even with issues in the run game. That's even with the drops, all that stuff. And when I look at the 49ers, when I try to diagnose what we got, yeah, we got a lot of OGs in here. Let's go. When I try to look and I try to make sense of what this team is, are they fugazi or are they for real? I see a team that just hit a little rough patch. That's really what it comes down to. And it always comes back to super cliche things. It's getting back to fundamentals. It's getting on the defensive side. It's getting back to playing gap sound football. It's tackling, right? Wrapping up, driving through tackles, all those different types of things. And we identified early on that the San Francisco 49ers needed more edge help. That was one of the things that I talked about for weeks leading up to the Chase Young trade, was that, listen, Nick Bosa isn't the problem. Javon Hargrave isn't the problem. Eric Armstead isn't the problem. And even Cleveland Farrell isn't really the problem either. Cleveland, I really like. I like his fit on this team, but I do think with the addition of Chase Young, you can now use Cleveland in that Charles Omenihu role. So far, Cleveland has been rushing the passer from the wide nine. He's been doing it off the edge. And although he's in my opinion, a quality edge setter in the run game, I think you can utilize Cleveland Farrell better as a pass rusher by kicking him inside over the guard, kind of like what we saw with Charles Omenihu. They're very similar builds, very similar play style. And I think if the 49ers can take a guy like Cleveland, who I do think has been playing well, and you can kind of put like a what's the word I don't want to say prototypical, but I want to say like borderline elite edge rusher in Chase Young. He has elite traits. Now we got to see if he can put it all together with the San Francisco 49ers. And you get back to winning games with that defensive line, the 49ers are going to be in good shape. Everything will fall into place if our defensive line can get back to doing what they do, and that's being dogs. That's really what it comes down to, in my opinion. And I think everything will fall into play. Linebackers will be able to shoot gaps better. They'll be able to, and I think one of the biggest things with our defensive line right now is they're not forcing enough double teams. So as a result, offensive linemen are peeling to backer, and you're getting bodies on Dre Greenlaw, you're getting bodies on Fred Warner, you're getting bodies on Oren Burks, and that's how you create these massive run lanes. And then the 49ers are relying on guys like Talanoa, Gipp, Oliver, Ward to make tackles in the run game, and those guys just don't match up as well with running backs as the linebackers. So on the defense, it all starts on the line. It all starts on getting penetration and, of course, rushing the passer. It sounds so simplistic, but it's really what it comes down to. And the fact that the San Francisco 49ers went out and got Chase Young makes me happy. Makes me have a much better faith in getting this defense back in order because, as you guys know, I've been pounding the table, not just because I have an infatuation with Brian Burns, which I'm sure you guys saw. The 49ers did attempt to, they showed interest in Brian Burns. That made me happy, made me feel somewhat fulfilled in the agenda prophecy of the Brian Burns to the 49ers. And who knows what that will look like later on down the road. Maybe it happens. But what the San Francisco 49ers did make it crystal clear was they needed edge help. And like I said, that was one of the most glaring issues when I turned on the defensive tape a month ago. And so I think the addition of Chase Young, after watching Chase Young too, getting to watch some of his tape, he's a dog. Like, I'm going to say it like this. I never studied Chase Young coming out of Ohio State because the 49ers weren't drafted number 2 overall. I don't follow Washington Commanders / football team / Redskins. I don't follow those guys. So I'm not keeping tabs on Chase Young. I know the perception of Chase Young. I don't know who Chase Young is. So for me this weekend, when I got all the kiddos to bed and, after we made the s'mores and we did all that and I'm chilling, I flip on some Chase Young tape. And what you see from Chase, first of all, physically imposing. Like I hope to see Chase Young kind of at the front of the boombox line. Like he's one of those guys, you hear those cliches of the first guy's off the bus. Chase Young's one of those guys. He has the size, the blonde dreads all braided up. I'm like, dang, this guy looks like he was born in a lab next to Nick Bosa in the pass rushing lab. I'm like, these guys just look the part. And when you see Nick Bosa and Chase Young stacked next to each other, they're like the same size. And we know how big Nick Bosa is. And so obviously passes the eye test. But when you start getting into the tape and you start seeing how he wins, he is a quality rusher. And you see a lot of similarities in how he wins, just like you see Nick Bosa win. Hand manipulation. One of the things that these guys do so well is when offensive linemen show hands, they grab the wrist and they jack it up. And offensive lineman loses all leverage as a result. And you can see Chase Young has those same attributes. He has those same abilities to be able to use technique to win on top of being physically imposing and on top of having good first step get off. And so when I look at Chase Young and his fit, I think I underestimated Chase Young, to be perfectly honest with you. I was leaning Sweat um, for the 49ers to make a trade and go and get a defensive lineman edge specifically. I said it, I was leaning Sweat, but after getting into the tape and like really watching, I'm like, actually, I think Chase has more potential than Sweat. I think there's another gear that the 49ers can unlock with Chase Young. And you put him in that defensive line with Bosa, Hargrave, Eric, and you add Chris Kosirk to the mix. I think that move, and then the flexibility that comes with Cleveland, that comes with Randy Gregory, that comes with Drake Jackson, and what Kinlaw and Gibbons have done, uh, I think this could be the move that helps gets the defensive line back on track, which then ultimately kicks the defense into gear. So I like it. I, of course, liked it when the 49ers made the move initially, but after watching the tape, the ACL injury, like, is he back? Because I remember watching him last year when he played the 49ers, and I was like, he didn't really do anything. He didn't flash on tape, but it was his first game back from tearing the ACL when he played the 49ers at home. But again, wrapping up the thoughts, this is the kind of guy that the 49ers that we have needed on the other side of Nick Bosa. It had to be someone of this caliber. And this right now, as we see it, has the potential now, because we don't know, right? We have to actually see it happen on the field. But as we see it right now, this could be the closest thing that we have seen to the 2019 defensive line that practically led the San Francisco 49ers to the Super Bowl. So, and it started with that defensive line. That was another thing that I was very impressed with by Chase Young was his ability to set the edge in the run game and also track down. One of my favorite plays from Chase Young was you see it all the time. He's a backside player. The tackle is going to block down. They don't even block the backside end because it's like a pitch or it's a sweep. And that player is so far outside that they don't even block the end, right? He's not even in the blocking scheme. They're like, "Oh, you're out here, whatever. We're not even going to touch you." And one of my favorite plays from Chase Young, he was unblocked because he was so far outside on the backside, and it was a pitch or a sweep. I can't remember exactly, but it was outside the tackle run to the right opposite side of him, and he chased that thing down so fast, and I was like, "Oh, we got speed." And he chased that, and then you had the front side edge, which was Sweat, maintain the edge integrity, and he held the edge. And then right when the running back was like, I got to adjust, boom, Chase was right there and rocked him. And for me, I saw a couple things. I'm looking at traits in that scenario. First of all, awareness, effort, and ability. And he showed all of it. And again, obviously, it's cool to be able to rush the passer, but you got to earn the ability to rush the passer. You got to stop the run. That's number one. And what we've seen with the San Francisco 49ers so far is they haven't done that. They haven't stopped the run, and they haven't earned the right to rush the passer. And, even though Eric Armstead had 2 sacks against the Bengals, which they were good sacks, and the defensive line did show up uh, a little bit more in that particular game, it wasn't where we needed to be. And I'm looking forward to what we get from him. I will say one thing that popped up at the end of the game was he was avoiding tackles. Now, this particular game that I'm speaking of was the game. Let me double check my notes. It was it the Eagles game? Oh, it was the Chicago game when Justin Fields went crazy with DJ Moore. But towards the end, the game was out of hand, and you could tell he was just business decisions, not trying to get dirty, not trying to get injured, whatever. I hope that's not something that is a trend. It's definitely something that I picked up on. But like I said, I think a change of scenery, change of environment, and what the standard is for the San Francisco 49ers, I do think that he will fit in and he will fit the role that the San Francisco 49ers need him to fit. So, uh, I like it. I liked it when it happened, but after getting into the tape, I like it much better. And I think with the combination of this group up front, I think this is what's going to help the 49ers get back on track. I really, really do. Glass City, appreciate the super chat. He says, you think the O line is competent? I think Trent is the O line. Without him, this unit is below average. Not sure what you see in Burford, McKivitz, and Brendel. They need to upgrade, or it will be the same. Let's pull the chat. So we're going to shift gears because this is perfect. This is a perfect transition. Glass City, and thank you for the super chat. And I'm going to get to Chili. Chili dropped the Discord. You already know the vibes. Join the Discord chat. But I think this is a great transition into going from defensive line to offensive line, because where the 49ers have lost predominantly these last 3 weeks has been in the trenches. It's one of the main things that we've talked about. It's one of the main things where we've been like, man, it feels like we've been getting dominated in a sense on both sides of the line of scrimmage. And so obviously we talked about the defensive line. I really do think Chase Young, that addition, is going to be a huge help. I really do. And then it allows more flexibility with rotations, NASCAR packages, all those different types of things. Chris Kosurek can get a little bit more creative, and I think that is going to immensely help the defense. Biggest part is you got to keep the linebackers clean so they can hunt, and that's what they do best. So I think it will be a big help for the defensive line, and I think the defense will follow suit. And we'll get back to the other aspects of the defense as well. But the O-line component is a very interesting one. I do agree that Trent Williams on the outside is a huge difference maker for this unit. I mean, he's the best left tackle in football, in my opinion. You could call it bias, you call it whatever. Trent Williams is the best offensive lineman to ever play the game. Like, I really don't think that it's up for debate. I'll say that it's up for debate because I don't want to discredit the greats that have came before Trent Williams, but I can say this: no one has ever played the game like Trent Williams plays, and especially just where he's at in his career, all that type of stuff, man. Trent is that guy, even at the age of 34 years old. Trent does make a difference, especially in the run game. I mean, we've seen the success that Trent has had, or the 49ers have had, when running to the left. He's phenomenal at collapsing the left side of the offensive line on down blocks. He always gets to backer. I mean, 99% of the time. Obviously, Trent is a huge piece, a huge piece to have. I will say that Jalen Moore did a decent job. Didn't do a great job. Wasn't, I would say, versus the Vikings Jalen did a great job. Versus the Bengals, he did an okay job. Um, there was a couple plays where he got, but I mean, honestly, considering where I'm trying to evaluate Jalen Moore, considering what my thoughts have been on Jalen Moore in the past and what I'm seeing from him now, I still see an improved player. So I do believe that obviously Trent's going to be the much better option. But I do want to say that Jalen Moore has provided me the confidence to believe that, okay, if we need a guy to fill in, I'm coming around to Jalen Moore. So, which is to me a good sign. But when we look at the interior of the offensive line, I'm going to throw Banks into this as well. I don't think Banks has been perfect these last couple weeks. I think Banks can improve on reach blocking. I think Banks this year has improved on getting to backer. I do think that has been a positive of Banks' game, but I do think on these outside stretch runs, I do think Banks can do a better job of getting his head across, reach blocking, getting his hips around. He can sometimes get beat on those types of outside stretch zones so that when you see CMC cut back, those cutback lanes aren't necessarily there. So I think there's room for improvement for Banks. And honestly, when I look at Banks, Brendel, and Burford, I would say out of that group, Burford has probably struggled the most. Seen, I have seen a lot of people, and I think someone in the chat, I think Texas Niner talked about it in the chat. A lot of people coming after Brendel. And so when I watched the Bengals game back, I watched it. I'm watching the offensive line and I'm watching that specifically. Listen, Brendel is 31, journeyman. He's not going to be an elite center, but he's a more than capable center. I think he's a quality center. When I look at, there's a couple plays where Brendel got beat. I think back to one specifically. I think it was a short yardage play. I think it was they needed a game like one. Maybe it was that first drive where they were trying to get a yard or two. I think it was the Kyle Juszczyk sneak. His pads got way too high. Reader got into him and just completely drove him back. That's obviously, you can't have that as a center. You got to get your pad level down. You got to drive, and you can't create penetration in that type of scenario. But when it comes to pass blocking, there's, and shout out to DJ Reader. DJ Reader was balling. I don't think Brendel is the issue. Is he perfect? No. Does he lose reps? He does. But I don't think he's the problem. The way that I look at the 49ers offensive line and what the problem is that they don't consistently do their jobs all together at the same time. It's a really weird scenario, and it's been going on for about 2 years in regards to the run game. I've talked about it before, and I'll talk about it again, and I saw it against the Bengals. It's not just one guy. It's like one guy at the most inopportune time based on what the run scheme calls for, either wrong head placement, wrong hand placement, not peeling, not picking up. It's just like this weird, because as you guys know, playing offensive line is a team within the team. These guys got to be on point together. And when all five, at minimum all four, no, it's got to be all five. When all five guys aren't executing to the best of their ability, one little just missed technique, missed leverage can blow up the whole play. And that's what I see that keeps happening. It can be 4 guys blocking phenomenally on one play, but one guy gets shucked out the way, and it throws off the timing of the play, throws off the timing of the run. It's just that's what I see with the issue with the run game. I know Burford has struggled. I still think Burford is trying to get his footing, um, and maintain and build that confidence. They just got to get it together at the same time. Like, that's what I think the key is to the 49ers offensive line. It's not necessarily one individual. It's if they can play together as a unit and consistently execute as a unit, they will find success. But right now, I'm not seeing it enough. I'm not seeing enough consistency as a unit. And that's how I'm looking at it. Now, I obviously you want the best right tackle in the game. You want the best left guard and right guard and center. But I do think these guys are capable. I do. I've seen them do it before. I just need to see them do it more consistently. I need to see them do it. Play in, play out. That's what I need. I don't think that, maybe the 49ers make a change at right guard in the future. I don't know. But I do think Burford has plenty of the tools and the traits to be able to be successful. And it just comes down to executing. It sounds simplistic, but this offensive line has to execute as a unit. It's not an individual game up front. It's not. These guys have to be there's so much intricate timing in this offense and what they're trying to execute. These guys got to be better together. And that would be my biggest like message to the 49ers offensive line. Like, if I could, it's just like, man, we just got to do our jobs together. We can't have one guy missing this leverage, or we can't have one guy missing his block, or we can't have one guy giving up penetration, because there's a domino effect. And it feels like every other play, there's some kind of misstep. So obviously, the 49ers could look to upgrade in the future, but that's not what we need to be concerned about right now. What we need to be concerned about is getting these guys playing quality ball on this stretch run so that the 49ers can get back to running the football at an elite rate. To be honest, we have not run the football at a high level since Mike McDaniel was here, I would say consistently in 2021. We have found success, obviously. Christian McCaffrey makes things look a lot better. But I do think the last 2 years, the offensive line could be better. Does that mean they're the worst? No, it doesn't. But there's room for improvement. And if they can get it back on track within this stretch run of just playing together, then we can see a lot of these issues corrected. They have the guys to do it. Like, Burford can do it. McKivitz can do it. Brendel can do it. Banks can do it. Feliciano can do it. They can get it done. They just got to. It's really that simple. Like, execute your technique, fire off the ball. 49ers offensive line should be able to get it done. And you also have to keep in mind, these defenses are also playing the 49ers like they know exactly what they're trying to do. That's another aspect of what's happening to the offensive line. The 49ers are just finding themselves in kind of the most precarious situations involving the way defenses are playing them in run fits. And it makes it really challenging for an offensive line trying to find success when they're shooting gaps. One of the things that I've noticed where other teams have found success, when we run the ghost motion, and that could turn into that Zorro concept where we are like pulling a Juice, pulling a Jennings, pulling a Kittle, and then let's say it's a run to the left, and they hike it right about when the puller is behind the right tackle, right guard, and they pull across, but we run a lot of counter runs off that as well. What I'm noticing the defenses are doing is they're bringing a safety down off the edge and trailing the puller. So basically, trailing whoever's pulling across the formation. And when they run counter, the counter runs are going straight into this guy coming off the edge. So you also have to keep into account that is another reason why the 49ers aren't finding success in the run game. It's multiple things. I'm not going to I think it's too easy to say that it's just personnel. I think it's too easy to say like, "Oh, we don't got the guys." I they're not going to be the number one offensive line, but this is an offensive line with all the weapons that can get it done. But I think they got to get more creative. And I think they have to understand, it's easy for me to say this, right? But I do think that there's room for them to scheme a little bit better and try to understand how the defenses are reacting to them, because the things that worked in previous years aren't working anymore. So, what do the 49ers have to do? They got to evolve, adapt. I don't know if that's trying to run more outside zone. I don't know if that's trying to stretch the ball more, trying to keep running these gap scheme counters. I don't know. But I do think they can figure it out. And that's what the bye's about. And I think they should be able to get this thing back on track. But what I would say is it is noticeable that the running game just isn't operating at the level that we have come to know. Um, Chris Forrester is in charge of the O line and run game. And listen, man, like Chris Forrester's a dog. He's an OG, one of the best offensive line coaches in the game. But that is really hard to replace Mike McDaniels. Like it really is. Like, well, I think I tried to talk about it all throughout that year. Like, I'm like, guys, Mike McDaniel's cooking up heat for us. The year that Debo Samuel went crazy, I was like, oh, Mike McDaniel's cooking. And half the people were like, "Oh, fire Mike, fire Mike. Who's this guy? Who's this nerd?" I'm like, you guys have no idea what you're talking about. Mike McDaniel's is elite coach, and what we've seen with his time with the Miami Dolphins is he's an elite schemer. He's an elite. He knows how to dial it up too, and we saw a lot of success in the run game with Mike McDaniel. I think they've tried to incorporate certain elements, of Mike McDaniel's run game. The Zorro concept, I feel like, became prevalent with him and all those different types of things. I think it's the whole room in general. It's the whole room in general. I think, and that's the thing, is if they can figure this out, the 49ers can get back to doing what they do, which is running the football at a high level. I think they can do that. But this is where we're going to find out. We got the Jags coming up. We got the Bucks after that. Seattle. These are big. I mean, all these games. 9 games left in the season. 49ers need to be more effective in the run game. This isn't a power group. And I think that's part of it. They're trying trying to run a lot of power concepts. Gap scheme is a power concept, and they're they're not they're not exactly not exactly power offensive linemen. They are definitely shiftier, faster, get to backer, beat you on stretch, beat you on pitch, stretch you horizontally. So it's going to be interesting to see what the adjustment is, but I do think the 49ers could get this back on track with that O-line. Justin says, your boy has been watching more college than ever, and Arizona wide receiver Jacob Cowing and OSU tight end Jack Velling look like they're going to be some dogs catching and blocking. Head sourdough scout in the building, already putting in work, getting us ready for draft season. San Francisco 49ers will have 10 picks because they traded the third, that third for Chase Young, which was going to be a comp pick. Such a steal that the 49ers got, but definitely looking forward to getting into draft season. And these are some guys that we're going to have to look out for. Arizona wide receiver Jacob Cowing, OSU tight end Jack Velling. If Justin brings them up, I believe him. I believe them. They're going to be solid. So 49ers could definitely potentially draft wide receiver, tight end. Tight end for sure, because the 49ers have already proven that they value adding more tight ends, but aren't seeing any production from those rookies this year yet. So far, we've seen a lot of Charlie Warner and Ross Dwelly behind George Kittle. And even George Kittle isn't getting used a ton in the passing game. But we'll see if that changes moving forward as well. I'll open it up to you guys. If you guys have any questions, anything you guys want to talk about. It's just kind of been me ranting on the O-line and D-line, and basically the summation is they have the guys to get it done. The question is, will they get it done? That's where I feel. Like, I don't feel like the 49ers can't get it done, but they got to play better. That also is a true statement. They got to get it done. Big matchup coming up with the Jags. Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, really good runner. It's going to be really interesting to see what these 49ers are looking like outside the bye. Would I like to see Jair Brown play more? We might be getting close. I feel like Gipp has been playing well. He doesn't really get challenged much in the passing game. I wouldn't mind seeing him sprinkled in. I mean, one of the things that we liked about Jair coming out was his potential to kind of play in the slot. But, I'll be honest, Jair looked decent in training camp. He wasn't like Talanoa to me. I feel like Talanoa absolutely just popped off the field. I was like, oh, that looks like a guy. I think Jair Brown has those traits, has those qualities, and obviously would be interesting to see how he's developed this far in his career. But yeah, man, if you can get some juice from someone, and if it's Jair Brown, then why not? But I also don't think you just bench Tashawn Gibson as well. I think Gip's playing pretty well. Gip to me hasn't been a problem. So I'm not in favor of just playing a guy, just to get him in there. Although would love to see Jair. I'm not ready to bench Gip yet for Jair. And obviously Talanoa is going to stay out there. So we'll see. We'll see what the 49ers ultimately do there, but I would like to see him sprinkled in and maybe some three safety sets. I think that's been one of the more interesting things, is that we haven't seen a ton of three safeties lineups. And I really thought that's what we were going to see. I thought we were going to see Gip, Huff, and Jair all on the field at the same time. But we've seen a lot of Oliver. So I don't know if that speaks to the readiness of Jair or lack thereof. That who knows, I think the biggest thing on everyone's mind is what's Wilks gonna do out of the bye? Bro, uh Wilks definitely got put on the burner these last couple weeks, especially after the Vikings game. And with Kyle, I think that's what Kyle realized. Like, even if that's how they feel internally and it's true and it's valid, I think what Kyle realized is you can't say that to the media and the fan base because look at the firestorm that has followed Wilks after Kyle. I don't think Kyle said anything wrong. I don't think Kyle was being malicious. I don't think, but again, it's just like it's that weird spot as being a head coach that when you say something, it means more. Even if it's true and even if it's accurate, sometimes the best thing to do is stand in front of that mic and just say, he's fine. Was you know what, you get what I'm saying? Like, I feel like Kyle inadvertently, because we know what it is when the 49ers aren't winning, our fan base wants who's to blame, whose fault is it? And I think it really made it easy for the fan base to take what Kyle said and be like, see, it's Wilks. It's a lot of things. It's a lot of things. Scheme for sure. How he's calling games for sure. We've been calling it out all year. You guys, if you sit with me on my, if you guys have seen my film breakdowns, we have our questions, and we've had our questions when they were winning. But obviously, when you're losing, then it's amplified. And then on top of it being amplified, coach speaks on it, and it's like, oh, we got our guy. We got our guy. One of the things in the NFL that I think has become very prevalent from a fan perspective, fans love firing coaches that aren't performing to the expectation. I mean, look at the Raiders right now. The Raiders fired Josh McDaniels and their GM, and they practically threw a parade. And it worked. And then you have Pierce come in, change the culture in a week, and they go out and they win a game. So there are plenty of instances where a change does work and it is needed. I don't I'm I'm interested to see, like, if the 49ers hypothetically hypothetically moved off Wilks, which has been something that Richard Sherman has echoed, uh, all those different things. Like, what's the next plan? What's plan B? Who's calling the plays? Are you giving it to Johnny Holland, linebackers coach? I don't think you give it to Chris Kosurik. Do you give it to Bullocks? Who becomes the defensive coordinator? What changes? How does it change? So, but I do think there are plenty of rooms for improvement for Steve Wilks, and it's going to be very interesting to see. Very interesting to see um, how Wilks adjusts his play calling and how he puts his guys in better position to be successful. So we'll see, man. We'll see. Winning cures all, right? I think we know that. We know winning cures all. And if these guys can get back on track, win some games, I don't think people will be as upset as they are now. So I personally believe that the 49ers will get back. I don't think there's any room for this to be a trap game. I don't care if it's a 10 a.m. start time in Florida. I don't care. We had our trap game versus the Browns. That was an unfortunate L. Can't have more than one trap game on the schedule. And I don't want this Jags team who has some pretty quality defensive line play. Josh Allen is playing lights out right now off the edge. They're playing good defensive ball. And of course, Trevor Lawrence, ETN, Christian Kirk, Ridley, they all have opportunities to make us pay. So this is a big game, man. And we know how the 49ers are probably viewing this game. They were talking about the Bengals game as a must win. They lost. They lost a must win game in October. So what does that mean moving forward? Does that mean every game moving forward is a must win? Kind of feels like that. But this is also a place where the San Francisco 49ers have been before. Doesn't mean that's what's automatically going to happen moving forward. But I think with the chips stacked against them and how everything is coming together, they got to win this game. They got to really get this thing back on track, set the record straight, and go get a W, man. Go get a W. I want to ask you guys this question. I was thinking about putting it on Twitter. I just haven't yet. Are you guys concerned about Brock Purdy? Are you guys concerned about Brock Purdy at all? Do you think that that Brock Purdy is fool's gold? Do you think he's having just a little rough patch? Are you what is the thought process on Brock Purdy? It's one thing that I really haven't been able to get like a track on because of we instantly went to the trade deadline and all that type of stuff. I watched the tape back. Brock's good, man. Brock's good. Like, I just don't think there's any other way around it. He's good. Are the picks unfortunate? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Change the outcome of the game. But that isn't everything. You got to look at the body of work. And when you look at the body of work right now from Brock, and especially in this game against the Bengals, he had 3 bad throws. Only 2 of them counted, but 2 of them changed the outcome of the game. I get it. You don't want to throw interceptions in the red zone while you're trying to close a gap on a playoff team. Can't do it. Can't do it. You can't miss the read on a zone read play that is absolutely going to be a touchdown if you hand the ball off and then you hold it and then you throw it and then it's a pick. You can't do that. All right. We all know this. If you're playing Madden, you can't do that. If you're playing in Pee Wees, can't do that. If you're playing at the biggest stage in the NFL, you can't do that. You got to be able to read the defensive end, hand the ball off, score your touchdown versus turning the ball over in the red zone. To me, that was one of the more egregious plays that I've seen from Brock Purdy with his time with the San Francisco 49ers the last 2 years, because it was so uncharacteristic. What Brock does so well is make the right read, make the right call, do those types of things. And that was just one of those situations where you're like, damn, man, what were you doing? And you watch it back on tape, and it's like, damn, man, what were you doing? Because that was a touchdown. It was a walk-in touchdown, and he pulled it and then threw the pick. It was like a triple negative. But what's crazy about it is he was on fire all throughout. Again, when you go back and you watch the tape, there's no ebbs and flows of momentum. So you take away the volleying of offense and defense and the momentum that's built into games that we remember, the feelings that we feel. When you watching tape, that is gone. You're just watching play after play, like they're just playing, like the whole offense is just playing one play after another. You don't see the punts. Obviously, you understand when they change field, when quarters end, all those different types of things. But tape is just stacking plays. And so when you're watching the tape, you're like, damn, that was a good throw. Damn, that was a good throw. Damn, that was a good read. Damn, that was a good scramble. Damn, that was a good throw. Damn, Brock's cooking. Damn, Brock's carrying us. And then we had the unfortunate play. And then we had another unfortunate play. But outside of that, Brock was on fire. So this is the way that I look at it. I am not concerned with Brock. I'm not. I really gave myself watch the Browns. We identified one of the issues against the Browns. He couldn't grip the ball. He couldn't grip it and rip it. Ball was wet. That's going to be something that we're going to monitor for rain games coming in the future. But the Browns situation, man, he just couldn't rip it and grip it. Yet he still almost put them in a position to win that game at the end. Vikings was damn near perfect the entire game. And then we know what happened. Gets hit on the head, and then over the next 6 throws, he throws 2 interceptions. Okay. Not ideal, but may have been dinged up a little bit. Then against the Bengals, kind of similar to the Vikings. For the majority of the game, he played exceptionally well. Like exceptionally well. Dimes, dots, darts, wake up, honey, Brock Purdy slinging. He was playing good. It's just those 2 plays. And then one that they got called for one penalty. I can't remember what the penalty was. I think it was Mike Hilton was squatting on a route from Christian McCaffrey, and Brock had pressure and he just let it rip, and Hilton undercut it, picked it, but it didn't count because I think it was like a roughing the passer or something like that. When I look at it, I'm not concerned with Brock. I'm really not. I think obviously in those situations, you want to see your quarterback take care of the football, make the proper reads, do those types of things. Anyone does. But look across the league right now. Look at Patrick Mahomes. Look at Josh Allen. Look at Jalen Hurts. Look at all these elite quarterbacks across the league. They're struggling. Or not struggling. They're not perfect. So honestly, and the only reason why I reference any other quarterback outside of Brock is just because naturally fans compare. That's just what we do. Like we just compare because we have a measuring stick and we need to be able to be like, well, are we as good as this guy? Brock's fine. I think that Brock is, I think when you also hear the players echo it, Fred Warner gets up at the podium. Brock's the least of our worries. I actually agree with him. I'm looking at Brock these last 3 weeks. Obviously, some unfortunate situations have went down, but the biggest factor, and I think all those losses, is the defense. Is if the defense could maintain their positioning better, the 49ers score more points. The 49ers get more opportunities with the ball. The 49ers are able to do what they need to do and get in rhythm and stop playing from behind so much. And it's so easy to yell at the quarterback and yell at the offense. Oh, they only scored 17 points. This is a complimentary football team. This is what we talk about. When we talk about 49ers football, we talk about complementary football. We talk about offense helping defense, defense helping offense, and special teams connecting it all together. And if they aren't playing complementary football and they get one-sided, it last 3 weeks. If they get one-sided, we get the last 3 weeks. They can't do that. They got to play complementary football. They got to aid each other. Defense, bend but don't break mentality works as long as the team isn't scoring touchdowns. Because if the defense is holding opposing offenses to just field goals, this offense is capable enough and good enough to score enough points to outbeat practically any defense that you put in front of them. And that's even if they aren't playing their best ball. The rant comes down to this. I actually feel more confident in Brock. I think when we see Brock struggle, we're still in that phase of like, we still haven't seen the full season. We still have the Jimmy Garoppolo PTSD. Well, remember Jimmy looked good in those 5 first games and then just rapidly regressed ever since. And we saw glimpses of what Jimmy could be, and we saw glimpses of the franchise quarterback that we paid. And I think there's a lot of that with Brock Purdy. I think some of us are preconditioned to be like, well, we're just waiting for him to turn into Jimmy Garoppolo. And I saw a lot of that on Twitter, I think after that Bengals game and all that type of stuff. And I'm just going back and watching the tape, and especially after watching Jimmy Garoppolo's performance just this last week or the week prior, I don't see it. They are not the same player, not even close, not even in the same area code. Like Brock right now, and we knew this when Brock came in as a rookie. Brock was outperforming Jimmy Garoppolo in his rookie season, and that was some of Jimmy Garoppolo's best ball. And so when I'm like seeing these, oh, he's Jimmy Garoppolo 2.0, I'm like, damn, that's super disrespectful. Because if you really study Jimmy G, which we do here on this channel, unfortunately, we lost a lot of Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy had his moments where Jimmy looked really good, and Jimmy looked like, yeah, there he is. He wasn't consistent enough, and when it fell apart, man, it really fell apart with Jimmy. Brock can literally shoulder this entire offense. He can backpack this entire offense. And I think that's where we hear a lot of the debates about, is Brock that guy? You know, can he elevate the play of other players? Can he do this? Can he do that? And I think based on what I've seen, and I can only assess what I've seen. And we've broken down every single game of Brock Purdy. We haven't done the film breakdown on the Bengals just because last week was crazy. But man, there are, can I count how many good, like he had probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He had 8 high quality throws, 8 extremely high quality throws against the Bengals. And not only that, he added extra ability with his legs. And I think what I do find fascinating, you guys know we are big fans of Steve Young here and his assessment of the quarterbacks. He goes on KMBR every week and he does his radio spot, and he's been talking about Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he's been pretty much spot on. I think it was after the Browns game, Steve Young kind of challenged him. I think inadvertently challenged Brock a little bit, because what Steve was saying is he's like, man, in today's NFL, you aren't going to win a lot of games with quarterbacks that are statues in the pocket. Guys that just stand there, the Tom Brady's, the Peyton Mannings. You're not going to win in today's NFL like that. He said it's the Josh Allens, the Patrick Mahomes, guys who the Jalen Hurts, the guys who can extend plays with their feet and do it not only with their arm, but with their feet as well. And since Steve has said that, there has been a noticeable difference in Brock Purdy's running ability. Like, we all know he can run. We've seen him run. We've seen him get out and shake and bake. If you're not first, you're last. We've seen him do it plenty of times. These last 2 weeks, he is noticeably taking off downfield. There's a huge difference between scrambling to throw and scrambling to scramble. Brock is looking to gain yards with his legs, and he's beating linebackers to the edge. So I found it interesting, one, that Steve kind of, I don't know if Brock has that ability to him. And I think Steve's word is gospel when it comes to the quarterback. And since then, the past 2 weeks, we have seen Brock make absolutely go after and make plays with his legs. I don't know if it's a coincidence. I don't know if there's any ties or any correlations, but the timing is fascinating. And it brings a different element to Brock's game. And if he can continue to do this with a little bit more consistency, like he did against the Bengals, if we can get that duality of Brock as the rusher and thrower against the Bengals, and he just limits those mistakes at the end, Brock is a quarterback that can be that new age style quarterback that gets loose and gets after it. What are one of the comps that we gave Brock Purdy last year? My favorite comp for Brock was Drew Brees, Russell Wilson hybrid. That was what we were like, I remember, I think it was Larry Krueger did an interview with Brock in the locker room, I think. I want to make sure I give him his credit. Pretty sure it's Larry interviewed Brock, and he says, like, who were guys that you watched, modeled your game after? He said Drew Brees and Russell Wilson. And when he said that, my mind went, I was like, that's who he is. He's a Drew Brees, Russell Wilson hybrid. Short, small, not a big arm, but shifty, can move. And if we can continue to see some of the more mobile Brock Purdy, like we saw against the Bengals, I think that's just another element that defenses are going to have to pay attention to. And that could open up additional things for the offense. Now, I'm not asking Brock to turn into a running quarterback. It's not at all what I'm saying. If he goes through the reads and his reads aren't there, run, baby. If you're getting man coverage and they're not sitting down a spy on you, run. Take off. Force them to keep a linebacker to spy you because that's going to open up someone else. And if they can get into that type of situation with Brock, defenses having to pay attention to his running ability, that's just going to open up the offense even more. So I think the 49ers are going to be I think Brock's fine, man. I don't think Brock's a problem. And that's the film talking. That's not even just me. That's just the film. You watch the film, Brock ain't the problem, man. Yeah, you got to limit the turnovers. That's a problem. That's for sure a problem. But every player makes mistakes and goes through ups and downs like this. He's like Fred Warner said, Brock Purdy is the least of my worries right now. Right now, my biggest concern is getting the run game going and defense as a whole. Those are my concerns. If you had to rank concerns, defense as a whole is number one. Coverage, 2. Pass rush, no. I'm going to do run stopping, 3. So it's basically defense and then subcategories of the defense that are my biggest concerns. Defense as a whole, coverage, run stopping, pass rush, tackling, O-line, missed opportunities. How am I a homer? Because I watched the tape and Brock Purdy looks good. I guess I'm a homer then. I guess I'm a homer because the tape says Brock Purdy has a lot to work with considering the circumstances. So it's fine. You don't have to agree with me. I don't care. I'm telling you my opinion. And that's what we got this back and forth for. That's why I like it. Because I'm at a point where I'm going to say what I feel. And right now, it would be really easy to say Brock's the problem. He's the quarterback. He's not it. He's thrown 4 interceptions in the last 2 games at the end of games to effectively crush the 49ers' chances of winning. That would be very easy to say. Very easy. You know how easy that is to say? You know how zero effort it takes to say that. It takes zero football knowledge to say that. You literally look at a stat sheet and he's like, no, look at the box score. When did he throw the interception? That's when. He doesn't have the clutch gene. It's confirmed. After he went undefeated in the regular season. Lost 3 games in a row. We'll throw out the one where he had I think his worst game was the Browns, and they still could have won that game because of Brock. And then you look at what he was able to do against the Vikings and the Bengals. He's not their number one problem in either of those games. And I get it. I get the comment of Breeze and Wilson comp, all that stuff. A lot of people don't have the ability to assess and assign traits. They when you hear the greats, that's why I'll never compare Brock to Patrick Mahomes. Not that I would to begin with, but you just can't do it because people don't actually understand the comp. They think you're comping the Super Bowl wins, all the things that they've done throughout their entire career. They don't understand that you're comping traits. Traits comps are completely different than career comps. That's the thing. People don't understand the difference. And that's how you can kind of discern who actually kind of understands football from a more, I would say, exact standpoint versus a broader standpoint. Because when you're in the business of scouting and identifying traits, that's different than comparing legacies. No one is comparing Brock Purdy to the legacy of Russell Wilson or Drew Brees. You're comparing traits and all those different types of things. And so when you look at play style, when you look at ability, and you look at what they're doing physically, there are comps to Drew Brees and Russell Wilson. It's not very hard to see because if you watch it and you're familiar with Russ and you're familiar with Drew, you can see the similarities in how they process. Drew is a processor. Drew is with accuracy. Drew with layered throws. Drew throwing outside the numbers. Brock is one of the better deep ball throwers in the NFL right now, according to statistics. But if you just watch the tape, you can see the comps. You can see the physical comps. That's what comps are for me. I'm not comparing legacies. And that's why people, when they hear like certain comps, they're like brain explodes. They're like, how are you comping a guy who has less than a full season to starts to Drew Brees and Russell Wilson? It's very simple. It's really simple, actually, because we're comparing traits. We're not comparing legacies. And that's the problem that people have with player comps is you comp a player and they're like, oh, nah, that ain't it. That ain't it. And you're like, well. Justin, Jacob isn't DJ Moore, though. Did you see what DJ Moore did against the Washington Commanders? He's not DJ Moore. But I'm just kidding. Justin knows exactly what he's doing. He says, I get that Jacob Crowning reminds me of DJ Moore, even though DJ Moore was a first-round pick and Crowning is projected to be a mid-round pick. 100%. Scouting minds just think differently. People who evaluate versus people who report, they're much different thought processes when it comes to evaluation. Um, and it's really easy to kind of discern. I got time today, you know. I got time today. I miss you guys. I'm down for a good argument. I'm down for a good argument in the chat. I got time. Why not? Let's argue. Because I really don't care at the end of the day. And evaluation is individual to each individual. Um, so if you don't like my comp, that's fine. I don't care. I don't care. I've luckily been doing this long enough to feel pretty confident in the way I evaluate. So it's okay. I don't get it right though all the time. Definitely get it wrong. Who have I've gone some wrong recently. I'm trying to think of some old scouting. Donovan West. I got Donovan West wrong. I was hyped on the tape, but I'm not gonna lie, when I went to the scouting combine, my red flag went woo. Because Donovan West, that's also, I loved Rashad White. That year. Rashad White was a draft crush. I wanted the 49ers to draft Rashad White. I got that one right. But I was like, oh, Donovan West, he looks good. Looks like a good center. He didn't pan out too well for us. And when I went to the combine and I was standing 2 feet away from Donovan West, I was like, oh, you're you're kind of small. Like, again, like you can be smaller, but I saw him as like 6'4", like 310, and I was looking at him. I was like, oh, he looked like a shrunken down size of everyone else around him, and you're like, ooh. It happens. It happens sometimes. I will partake, Jay. What is the delusional thing about Brock Purdy? I'm curious to know what that is. What is the truth of Brock Purdy, and what is the delusional take of Brock? Feel free to indulge me. I've studied every snap of Brock Purdy since he's been on the San Francisco 49ers. So I am curious to see what the delusional side of things may be for people who support Brock Purdy. Oh, I didn't see this. My bad. Spokane. Hopefully you're still in here. I completely missed this. I must have been ranting earlier. He's not a franchise quarterback, like I stated earlier. You literally just said nothing. That what you just said means nothing. From an evaluation standpoint, from a critical critiquing standpoint, what you just said made us all dumber for having to listen to what that's it. You had all this time to come up with a response to why everyone is delusional for supporting Brock Purdy, and your response is he's not a franchise quarterback, like I stated earlier. Bro just said a whole lot of, come on, man. How are we delusional? You didn't say anything. Come on, man. You can do it. Tell me facts about his game. Tell me traits. Tell me processing wise. Tell me from a mental standpoint, from a physical standpoint, why he isn't the guy. Please Tell me. Because he's not a franchise quarterback. Why? Because he was drafted as Mr. Irrelevant? Is that why? You probably didn't like Tom Brady either. He's unable to carry a team. How? How is he not unable to carry the team? Because in the last 3 games in which the 49ers defense have struggled mightily, prior to that, scored 30 points per game. You forget about the touchdowns that he had. You had the back shoulder throw to Brandon Ayuk, right corner. You had the touchdown against Pittsburgh over the middle, where he pulls the linebacker out of the middle, dart to Ayuk. Rams. I'm trying to think of what he did against the Rams. I mean, the list goes on and on. You go to the New York Giants, you had the throw with pressure in his face, uh, fading to Ronnie Bell, left corner pylon. You had the back shoulder to Debo Samuel, right corner pylon. Can you give me any specific examples? He got praised for 30 points a game, but now the offense averages 17 points a game and the defense is at fault. Make it make sense. My brother doesn't know what complimentary football is. Sorry, let me get to the super chat. Coming off a 3-game losing streak, Debo said Kyle was in Cabo for the bye. Is this okay for how Swiss cheese this team looks? Great question. This is my view on this. I prefer. In fact, I wish Kyle went to Indonesia. I don't know. Just get away. Like, I think fans do have a hard time of rationalizing that this is a job for them. It's a passion for us. It's a job for them. So like me, I'm posting content 24/7. I'm covering the team. I'm doing everything I can to keep everyone up to date. That's what I do. I mean, look at my office. But if you give me the first chance to go into the wilderness with no cell service and no Wi-Fi for 4 days, I am taking it instantly. Get me out of here. I've been running content daily, hours upon hours since July. Now put yourself in a coach's shoes who are starting their days at like 5 in the morning, and then they're working till like 10 o'clock at night, not seeing their kids, not seeing their family, and they're grinding and working and working and grinding. And then the bye week comes around and they go on a trip. Please go on a trip. Please get as far as away from the building as possible. We're all human beings. We all understand what it is to be overworked, what it is to just be in the weeds too much, and you need to refresh, reboot, recalibrate, refocus. Get Kyle as far away from the Bay Area as much as possible. I don't think that's a problem. I don't think there's any amount of sitting in an office, breaking down film, trying to come up with ways. You know what I mean? I just think, yeah, I don't think that's a problem at all. In fact, I prefer it. Get away. Get away. Reset the mentals. Refocus. Get away. Uh, Jay, it makes sense, Jay. It makes sense, Jay. Um, it all makes sense, Jay. Man, I'm having fun today, just vibing out. Remember, we're past an hour, so we're off the rails. Anything goes at this point. We've decided to spark up an argument um, with a system commenter in the chat um, who, I'm not gonna lie, kind of reminds me of like Raider fans. We talked about this on this channel all the time. Anytime a Raider fan comes into the chat, we call it hashtag Raider logic, because when it comes to Raider logic, they don't say anything when they make arguments. When they're actually trying to have a football conversation with other people who understand football, they don't actually bring anything of substance to the table. They just say things that my 6-year-old could figure out. They don't actually say anything. Anyone who could pick up a box score, oh, there's no logic. There's no like A plus B equals C, connect the dots. Like there's no like spinning wheel. It's like a Raider logic. And I would hate to have to, you know, have 49er logic, because I don't think that's the case. I think 49er fans are smart. I think the 49ers have one of the smartest fan bases. I think they have one of the most passionate fan bases, which creates certain people and certain takes. But Jay, come back. Listen, come back. I don't want you to go away. I want you to come back after this game against the Jags, and let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, if Brock Purdy has a bad game against the Jags, we're going to talk about the bad game against the Jags because we have to. It's going to happen. We're going to have to talk about what Brock did right, what Brock did wrong, how it impacted the game, positively or negatively. That's how it works around here. So come back. Come back after week 10 and we'll see what happens. But this would be my take, is that if we get, now brace yourself for this, Jay, because this is a wild take. But if a team plays team ball and they play complementary football, like we've come to know when they were scoring 30 points a game, I think we would then see everything that we've come to know and see from guys like Brock Purdy. Jay, please come back. Please come back. Please come back. I want to continue this debate with you as the season goes on. When they were scoring 30 points a game, it wasn't team ball. It was all about Purdy. I disagree with that. But Purdy was playing exceptionally well. Purdy was playing exceptionally well, which is true. I don't know if you saw PFF's highest graded wide receiver last week. The man, the myth, the legend, Dontavian Wilks. I had to slide Dontavian into some of my starting dynasty lineups. I had to slide him right in. Dontavian's pretty good. Dontavian is pretty good. All I do is cap to y'all. I'm sorry, Jay. I'm sorry I don't prey on your emotions. Should I do that though? I could. Let's see. Let's see. I talked about the defense for a long time. I have defense as my biggest concern right now. Defense playing very uncharacteristic. Like I said, Brock Purdy's the least of my concern at the current moment. The SF Cappers. Yeah, buddy. You want Cap? Come here. Come on down. Do I think Philly's going to drop any games? Hmm. They could. They could. I think this is where we're currently at in the Brock Purdy evolution. It's very simple. Brock Purdy plays out of his mind as Mr. Irrelevant. It's a very simple concept. Takes over media storylines, wins the heart of the San Francisco 49ers fan base. Absolutely just adore. Fan base adores Brock Purdy. Goes undefeated in the regular season. Who knows what's going to happen if he doesn't get hurt in the NFC Championship game, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to talk about that. And then comes out, beats Steelers, beats the Rams, beats the Giants, beats Cards, and drops 42 on the Dallas Cowboys' head. And then goes into his first ever kind of sputtering, if you will. And the most sputtering it came from, in my opinion, was the Browns. Vikings, Bengals had 4 bad throws. 4 bad throws, 4 mistakes, and that's going to happen. And so this is where I think people have a hard time, is because when you have someone who comes out with so much hype, there's naturally going to be people who are going to discredit the hype. Well, now you're just making things up. Does Jay have a burner account? Now you're just making things up. But we're at a point where he reaches peak hype levels and is putting up, he has statistical backing. The film doesn't lie. He's playing at an extremely high level and then comes back to earth a little bit. So naturally, the people were ready to pounce, probably like Jay. We talked about this before Brock had his reality check, I guess, if you will. We talked about this. We said the second Brock shows any signs of struggle, people are going to hop all over it and they're going to say he's not for real. They're going to go counter opposite of what the hype was, because that's human instinct. Hype instantly draws detractors. Hype is going to always bring people to come in and wait for the floor to fall out. So that's what we have with Brock Purdy. He's had some poor throws in Vikings and Bengals. Browns was not a good game by Brock. still put them in a position to win the game. And so now people are coming out saying Brock ain't it. That's fine. That's fine. I don't, you can do whatever you want. And you can believe whatever you believe. That's the beauty of being able to evaluate football, is that you can go back and you can watch and you can replay and you can continue to see where he's finding success and where he's struggling. And the struggles are minuscule compared to the success he's had. And the problem is that they've come at unfortunate times. And so they are highlighted, which again does not excuse him from the mistakes. However, it just pinpoints the fact of why we can't make those mistakes in those moments. But if you actually understand football from a fundamental standpoint, all the mistakes that he has made are correctable. They can be corrected. You can hand the football off to whoever that was. Was it I think it was, I keep forgetting. Elijah Mitchell, and score a touchdown there. And then all of a sudden we figured it out. And all these other things can be corrected. Jay, don't talk to Jason like that. Come on now. Come on now. How can you come into this chat, name dropping other creators to back up your take, and then you're beefing with my people? Come on, man. Come on. Let's have a debate. We can talk about it. Doesn't have to be that serious. Does not have to be that serious at all. All streamers are so tense lately. I'm not going to be honest. Or I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to be honest. I'm going to be honest. Bro, when the 49ers lose, the tidal wave of people, kind of like Jay, just come out the woodworks, man. Like you guys know, man. I think back to when one of the craziest streams we've ever done was the preseason game against the Texans where Trey Lance started. And it was the most toxic thing I have ever seen. Oh, man. All right. It's time. All right. We'll see. We'll see if a little break will help them out a little bit. Charlene says, I'm going to trust the people like Kurt Warner who knows what they're talking about more than me. 100%. That's the thing. When you start like looking around at all the people who have football takes, which is literally everyone, but then you see the people like Kurt Warner, when you see the JT O'Sullivans, when you see all these former quarterbacks who have played at the highest level, Steve Young talking about how Brock is playing at an insanely high level beyond his draft status, clearly. It's like, man, relax. No one's trying to crown Brock Purdy as the greatest thing since sliced bread. But he's the greatest thing that we've seen under Kyle Shanahan with the San Francisco 49ers at quarterback. He's better than Jimmy Garoppolo. He's better than Nick Mullins. He's better than CJ Beathard. He's better than Brian Hoyer. And he's better by all of them by a long shot. And he hasn't even started a full 17 games yet. So I get people not liking the hype and trying to be counter hype, but got to just figure it out, move on. We become concerned if it becomes a trend. We've got 2 games in a row with 2 late game interceptions. All right, let's break that against the Jags. Thought of you when I saw 5'11", 175-pound Jacob Cowing pancake a defender, and he's so shifty. You're gonna love him, man. I'm looking forward to it. Speaking of draft crushes, um, am I frozen? I got hacked. Am I frozen? Have you seen Demario Douglas? The entire Patriots offense, uh, is atrocious. But Demario Douglas looks good. That was my boy. That was my guy. Jay was taking the channel down. He said, if you're kicking me out, you're all coming with me. That's how we're doing it today. Nah, 5'11", 175. That sounds like Demario Douglas. My boy Demario cooking. Only bright spot on the Patriots right now. Literally the only bright spot. Oh, man. That's a terrible trade. Someone in my dynasty league just offered me Matthew Stafford and Jerome Ford for a 2024 first round pick. Terrible trade. Instant decline. No counter. Terrible trade. What? Matthew Stafford and Jerome Ford for a 2024 first round pick? Come on, man. I'm all for sending out feeler trades. That wasn't it. I don't like that one. Hey, Dobbs is balling, man. Dobbs is balling. I like Dobbs. I like Dobbs a lot. I got a lot of respect for him. I wonder if Jay comes back. I hope he does. I would divert all college scouting evaluations to Justin at the moment. As you can see, head sourdough scout already putting in the work. I do think cornerback is definitely going to be something that we're going to have to target in the draft, but I think offensive line, cornerback need to be at the top of the list. All that good stuff. Am I going to the Philly game? Probably not. I went to the Philly game last year. Oh, dude, it's a pain. It was a pain to get out there to Philly. So I'm probably not going to go. That was quite the journey. And not going to lie, I have a lot of PTSD from being in that place. And if they were to go down again, That would be one of the most brutal flights home. I remember I had no internet on that flight, and I have ADHD, and so I just watched the tape back. I think I watched the offense and defensive tape back to back like 2 times in a row each side because I was so bored, and it was just painful. It was so painful. So I'm probably gonna skip that one. Oh boy. We got Seattle coming up. That's gonna be a good one. Seattle Eagles, Seattle. Talk about a sandwich right there. So we'll see. But I think it's time. Appreciate you guys as always. Good to chat with you. Good to get into it too. Getting a little healthy debate with a 49ers fan who doesn't like Brock Purdy. Those fans are always very interesting to me because why wouldn't you like Brock Purdy? What has Brock Purdy done to make you not like him? I don't understand. But hey, to each their own. To each their own. Everyone's willing to have their own opinion. And that's fine. But anyways, appreciate you guys. Bye week's over. It's a Wednesday tomorrow. But it still feels kind of like a Monday. So we're going to be getting back into the swing of things. And we'll see. We'll see what the week entails, but it's get right week against the Jags. So it's time. It's time to get after it. Time to get this W and time to put this 3-game stretch behind us. So looking forward to it. Great talking with you guys. We should be on for State of the Franchise tomorrow. I'll double check with Aponte and all that good stuff. But appreciate y'all. Good to see you guys. 4 days still too long without chatting with you. And we'll be back to do it again tomorrow. Appreciate you guys. I'm out of here. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to